Atlanta, Georgia, what is good? Woo! We've got a packed crowd tonight. There's so many people here. This is nuts. Sweet. Alrighty, so I am very excited to be here. I'm very excited to talk about these chapters. There are some intense things happening in the story. I'm sure you're all aware. I'm very excited. So I think we waste no time with me talking about things that you've heard, like people complaining about the traffic and all this kind of stuff. Let's just get right to, we know what it is. Let's just get right to the story. Let's get right to our guest for the show. The guest who's joining me today, someone you've heard on the podcast, and I have been friends with for years and years and years, and it's very fun to do these touring things with him. So please make some noise for the guest for tonight's show. It's Michael Hollis! We are getting our steps in today from the green room to the stage.
Just following the dollar bills.
Yes, it's a new crop of dollar bills. Every couple of months I have to get them because I lose them along the way from tour to tour. So you all got a fresh cropping of pretend $100 bills. The things I do for you, Atlanta. So we are here to cover some chapters from The Lost Hero. At this point, I've asked you a whole bunch of different questions and stuff in terms of getting people to understand you and your Percy Jackson stuff. So I feel like we've kind of touched it all. Do we want to real quick? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Georgia and Atlanta? You're from around somewhat these parts, kind of.
Yes, from Huntsville, Alabama. Anyone been to Huntsville? It's
okay.
It's like not that far, but there's like no great way to get there from here. So I came to Atlanta a lot, or near Atlanta, for Six Flags as a kid. So
what's the name of Atlanta's Six Flags?
Six Flags Under Georgia.
What of Georgia?
Six Flags Over Georgia.
Over Georgia. Oh, okay. That's not as fun. Sorry. New Jersey's is called Six Flags Great Adventure. And then I think the Texas one is like Six Flags Over Texas, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine.
So Texas and Georgia have to fight. There can only be one. Like, you can't be both over whatever. You can only be one. Anyway, we're going to talk about books.
Okay.
We're here to talk about books. We're going to be talking about chapters 43 and 44 of The Lost Hero. And what we will be kicking off things here with is chapter 43, which is called Jason, but of course we're going to retitle it. Now, where we last left our heroes, we had some tinkering happening with Leo. He was using the machinery to fight, but off in the distance, he saw Jason and Enchiladas fighting. And that is where we pick things up. I'm very excited because we actually get to see Jason do a fight and narrate the fight and actually like be in the narration, so we'll see what happens.
Boy, does he.
Oh yeah, super stoked about it. So this chapter begins with, when Jason's lance broke, he knew he was dead. And no, not Fliptide, no! Why must all the cool things in this book die? Festus dies, Fliptide dies. I can't live with this. Why can't anything last one book? Makes me sad.
Better hope Jason makes it.
Oh God, oh no! So, the battle started off pretty well. Jason's battle instincts kicked in. They kept him alive. They kept him safe. His vague memory of I've been in fights before, but I can't remember anything about them was helping. He had this feeling like he's fought people this big before because Enchiladas is 30 feet tall. But he is remembering little things like, oh yeah, if someone's really big and powerful, they're probably slower. So I should use quick athletic moves and try to, death by a thousand cuts sort of thing.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool because it was like more than just the like vague ADHD battle instincts. This was like actual battle training that he's remembering, like specific tactics and rules of thumb to,
he goes into the fight being like, I need to wear this guy out. I need to do little tiny things and wear him out over time. Now, at one point, he jabs Fliptide into Enchiladas' ankle, and it breaks through his dragon hide skin, and it draws ichor, which is nice. But unfortunately, Enchiladas retaliates with a blast of fire. Jason is able to roll dodge away and get Enchiladas in the back of the knee. And for me, reading this at this point, the chapter started with saying that things weren't going well. It seems like things are going incredibly well. So clearly something bad is going to happen. Maybe the aforementioned breaking of Fliptide. Narrator Jason says that the fight went on like that for minutes, and he was happy to hear time and time again triumphant cries from Leo and Piper. So just every 30 seconds, like, cool, my friends aren't dead. Nice. So
yeah, this is a fun instance of kind of what you're talking about earlier, where the change of narration plays with time a little bit. So previous chapter, you had Leo doing his whole thing, and now this is like starting back from the beginning of the fight. and then catching up to where that left off.
Right, because Leo ended the previous chapter saying Jason was fighting him and it wasn't going well. And it's clearly not at this point because things are going quite well right now. But that will change, unfortunately. Jason realizes he's got to keep the focus on the fight. So he does. The fight continues, and here's where a thing, and we have a sound cue prepared for this and everything. So you won't know this because the episode of the podcast has not come out yet. But there's an important thing. There's a way that I'm referring to Gaia, and I'm going to do it for the rest of probably the whole time I do the show. It has to do with the audiobook narration. So, Mr. Soundman, if you could please play the sound cue so people can understand a cool joke I made, but it won't come out for like a couple of weeks.
And you, my daughter, are much more than a pretty face.
This is from the Aphrodite and Pibb,
which is why you
dreams.
already know who is waking the giants, and who has the power to open doors into the deepest parts of the earth. Aphrodite waited, as if she could sense Piper slowly putting together the pieces of a puzzle, which made a dreadful picture. Gia, Piper said. The earth itself.
Thank you.
Our enemy.
So, shout out to Stephen Parra, who did put that clip together. But I will be referring to Gaia as Gia for the rest of time because it's too funny. And I apologize that you don't like this cool joke that I will be making forever. I think it's hilarious to call her Gia. It's so funny. Why did they do this? Why did no one correct him?
I have seen this specific voice actor in other things, and so just like I hate it that he's the one that is associated with this. And I was like, you should have known better.
I don't put it on the actor.
Or his voice director or someone.
Whoever's in charge. Like, who was there? Surely someone was there with headphones in and they could have been like, Brad? You've never read the word Gaia before.
Right, like of all the Greek names that like could be, Demeter, Demeter, that like,
sure.
Gaia is pretty standard.
It's pretty standard.
Have you not seen Captain Planet?
Yeah, look. It seems like it's right there, but that's for context of why I'm going to keep calling her Gia for the rest of tonight. So, anyway, Percy Jackson, as the fight continues, Gia's power grows, and it sticks Jason's feet to the ground more and more. Enchiladas begins to move faster because he can anticipate Jason's moves. Enchiladas taunts that Jason's golden toothpick can't kill him, and Jason doesn't waste any energy on a retort because he's already exhausted, something I could never do. I can't turn off trash talk when I'm playing sports. The clinging to the ground, the smoke in the air, the heat all around, it's just making this fight incredibly difficult for Jason. He raises his javelin to block Enchiladas' next strike, which he realizes is a mistake. He recalls Lupa, the wolf, giving him advice, telling him not to fight with force years ago.
Do you know who that is at this point? Do you know what the deal with Lupa is?
I don't think I know specifically.
There's a wolf named
There
Lupa.
is a wolf. She talked to him in a dream, and then I feel like it has something to do with Hera because she has like a wolf hide, but it's someone different than Hera. I don't think I know specifically who she is.
It may never come up again.
It might not. Surely it'll just be like, yeah, this throwaway talking wolf, whatever. Either that or I'm like really misremembering, but I have a lot going on in my life right now. There's a certain new addition. So Jason ends up deflecting the spear, even though this is a bad idea. He deflects the spear, and he gets hit in the shoulder. His arm begins to go numb, and he realizes, I have to stall in order to give Leo and Piper ample time to defeat the Earthborn and save Tristan, and that is what's most important. So he tries to lure Enchiladas to the edge of the clearing, and Enchiladas can sense Jason losing his strength, so he begins to taunt. Quote, "The mighty Jason Grace. Yes, we know about you, son of Jupiter, the one who led the assault on Mount Othrys, the one who single-handedly slew the Titan Krios and toppled the Black Throne." What? I'm sorry.
But I thought it just fell by itself after Kronos died.
It does make things make sense because earlier when Hedge kind of said what you just recounted, Jason just did these instinctual no. And
that's not what happened
didn't
at all.
Any other context.
Says the guy with no memories confidently.
Right. And I should have thought that like Jason might have been directly involved with it, but there was enough things where he just kind of like knew stuff. But I didn't think that this would be the reveal, that he knew that that was wrong because he's the one that did it. And the fact that he wasn't just there, but they said that he single-handedly slew the Titan Krios is wild. But I guess Titans aren't the same as giants because giants have it has to be demigod and god. So Titan not. So him single-handedly defeating Krios is very cool.
Yeah, like he's already on Percy level of glory.
Sure. And it's also exciting because Krios should come back, I would imagine. So him having very established beef with Jason could be very exciting. So I think this is cool. He just kind of like throws it right out there. There's no long preamble. Like it's just 2 sentences, boom. And then Jason's mind is sent reeling.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, he doesn't know these names, but his skin tingles, quote, as if his body remembered the pain his mind didn't. Which is an interesting way to talk about a hangover when you black out and you're like, oh, my pain that my mind can't remember. Jason asks Enchiladas, what are you talking about? And Enchiladas responds by breathing fire at him. Jason is a bit too slow to dodge because he's distracted.
Got him.
Yeah, he's a bit too slow to dodge because he's distracted by kind of learning his entire deal. And he is able to dodge the fire blast, but the heat still scorches his back. His clothes catch fire. He's struggling to breathe, and he cannot see due to the smoke and the ash. Now, he's able to get away from a spear attack from Enchiladas and then get to his feet, and he thinks summoning one final blast of lightning should do the trick. However, it also might do the trick on me because I'm drained of energy, so I might die if I do this. But he figures, I think it's my best shot, but then he also thinks, is Enchiladas even going to be hurt by the lightning? Like, he doesn't know the breakdown. Is he resistant to lightning power? I'm not sure. He's not sure. And he then hears Lupa's voice say, death in battle is honorable, to which he thinks, that's real comforting.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Wolf Mom. Oh, no, yeah, we do have the context. I think she, like, raised him. It was very Romulus and Remus-y. Like, she talked to him and she said that, like, she raised him. It was very founding of Rome coded, which I do know because I took Latin in high school. So I think that was the context. He had, like, a conversation with her, and I think it was, like, he was dropped off.
Yeah, I think she showed up at camp and, like, talked to him in a vision or something.
Yeah, so I guess, like, when he gets left and Thalia leaves and he's tiny, she raised him from that point onward, I guess. That's what it is, I think. I don't want to get spoiled, so let's just keep going. So then narrator Jason says, quote, one last try. Jason took a deep breath and charged. Enchiladas lets Jason come at him and smiles, and that's not a good sign for us and our good friend Jason. But I have to say, Enchiladas elite vibes as a villain. The fact that he's smiling and laughing and taunting and doing all these things, he's so confident. He is very compelling as a villain for our good boy Jason to fight. Jason fakes a strike and then rolls under Enchiladas' legs. Nice move. And he pops up quickly, ready to give a full force thrust into Enchiladas' back. But Enchiladas anticipates the move and steps to the side quickly. Too quickly, Jason thinks. Almost as if the earth helped him. And I wrote in my notes, I bet it did. So Enchiladas swings at Fliptide, and then there's a loud bang like a shotgun being fired, and Jason's weapon is broken in half, which is very disappointing. I did know this was coming because at the beginning of the chapter they said, this will happen. But I do think it's interesting because this is basically the end of chapter 43, and we've had a couple of different times when the first line of a chapter gives away something to happen a little bit into the chapter. Like the previous chapter said, the plan went wrong almost immediately, and then we see a little bit of the plan, and then it goes wrong like halfway through the chapter. But this is like 4 sentences before the chapter ends. So we basically knew where this was going, and then read the entire chapter without it happening. So I think it's an interesting use of Uncle Rick's sort of playing around with the timeline and the cool things he does with the opening lines. It's really fun. I like it. So it breaks, and then it has an eruption, and there's an eruption of heat, there's a blinding flash of light, and then I remembered that this was mentioned earlier. Medea, when she was explaining what Imperial Gold was, another time that Jason went, I'm sorry, what? She said that you should be careful if this ever happens, and then I definitely said at that live show, oh, this is for sure happening, and now it has for sure happened. Thanks, Chekhov, you did it. So the blast sends Jason to the ground. He's at a loss of breath. And when he regains his sense, he's at the rim of the crater. And at first when he said the crater, I was thinking, oh, is this what those people were digging? Because we wondered.
I had the exact same note. I had to read like these set of chapters through like 2 or 3 times before it finally clicked that this crater was caused by this explosion and not by the construction equipment.
Yes, because as we wondered at the live show last night, and you will hear at some point, and podcast people have already heard, time jump is fun when I do these shows. But we were wondering, why do they have all this construction equipment? Is it really just to make this clearing? Is it just for the bonfire? What's going on? So when they said a crater, I was like, oh, maybe there's some sort of purpose of the crater. But then the crater gets described a little bit more, and it was just from the blast. I had written in my notes, is this what they were digging, or is it the blast? And then right under, turns out it was the blast. So it's a 30-foot deep crater, and because of lightning, dirt, whatever, it is basically lined in glass. And Enchiladas at this point is also at the edge of it. He's staggering about. Jason's clothes are steaming, he has no energy, he has no weapon, and Enchiladas seems like he's doing all right. Jason cannot even get to his feet, but then Enchiladas laughs and says, impressive! Unfortunately, that was your last trick, demigod. And now, my first sacrifice to Gia. So that's the end of chapter 43. Which I have retitled, I Blow It. Just because it's like, he messed up, and then the golden toothpick exploded, and then also with glass, I was like, ooh, glass blowing. Like, it just kind of feels like lots of triple entendre. Do you have a retitling of chapter 43?
How about money makes the world go boom?
Oh.
This is like a coin, and it's gold.
Yeah.
And
I like it. Very good.
The world, but it's earth.
I love it. That's very good. Let's get into chapter 44 now, which is also called Jason, but we will retitle it. So this one begins, and it says, time seemed to slow down, which was really frustrating since Jason still couldn't move. So, another good one. The ground becomes comfortable like a waterbed. And at this point, I'm wondering, is Uncle Rick sponsored by Big Waterbed? Or is he just of the right age where waterbeds were kind of cool and people enough had them?
Yeah.
I've laid on one. I want to say my uncle had one.
Not that great.
They're not incredibly comfortable. I remember being 9 years old and laying on it being like, this is fun. But I didn't like lay down and think, oh, what luxury. I don't think they're particularly comfortable. But the fact that we have one waterbed reference in each of the series, it's one of those, like, if I had a nickel for every time, I have two of them, it's kind of weird things. A lot of waterbed reference. It makes me want to ask, like, in my very important list of questions, ask Uncle Rick, like, do you have a waterbed? Do you still have a waterbed? You seem to really like waterbeds.
How high up on the list would that question be?
I don't know. How
much time do you hypothetically imagine Uncle Rick will give you?
I don't know, because I only had the thing where I got to, like, submit questions for him to answer, which were on the podcast, but I didn't get to ask them directly. But it was very fun because when we did this thing, it was like a group, it was like all the podcasts that were doing the press opportunities, and they listed them all, and they clearly put my questions at the very end in terms of, like, because they were all goofy as heck. So they clearly they clearly had mine at the very end, but if we get to them, and then we did get to them, and mine were fun because that's how questions should be. Stop asking people the same questions all the time. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So the ground feels comfortable like a waterbed, I guess, encouraging Jason to give up. So Guy is using different powers now to try and get him. Sorry, Gia is using different powers now. My apologies to myself. He's clearly accepting death because he's wondering if the stories that he's been told about the afterlife are real. He's debating whether or not he will end up in the fields of punishment or in Elysium. And if Luke and Selena are in Elysium, you're gonna be fine. Don't worry.
I had that exact thing written down, that you've been skeptical about Luke and Selena. What do you think about Jason's odds?
It seems like he's been doing a good job, even from this book on, but now we've also learned he defeated Krios. Come on, dude. He's in there with flying colors. So he's thinking, am I going to end up in one of these? He's unsure of if his deeds will count if he cannot remember them, which is pretty good in the sense that, like, yeah, you would hope this cool thing you learned about would be that, but you wouldn't also want to later learn. They're like, oh, yeah, and he also destroyed Cleveland that one time or whatever. So hopefully
this isn't the first Imperial gold spear that he's accidentally blown up. Accidents happen.
But even if it's just the stuff from this book on, he's done some really good things. So I think he should be just fine. If the barrier to entry is do a good thing right before you die. So I think he should be okay. He also then wonders if he could get a note from his dad, Zeus, that says, please excuse Jason from eternal damnation. He has had amnesia. Great.
Yeah, that made me chuckle.
Jason can see a tip of a spear coming his way towards his chest, but he's too beat to move. He can't move his arms. He can't move himself. And he finds it funny that you can go through all of these struggles to stay alive, go through all this effort, and then you might just die in the helpless manner like this, where you know it's coming, but you can't do anything about it. But then our good pal Leo yells, heads up! And Jason sees a large piece of metal wedge into Enchiladas and knock him into the pit. Piper calls for Jason to get up, and her voice gives him the energy to sit up. So charm speak used for motivational purposes. This is cool. Piper helps him to his feet and tells him there is no way she is dying on him. And I think it's very cute. I like this. It's a good little moment between the two of them.
Some great bardic inspiration right there.
Yes, exactly. And then Jason replies, "Yes, ma'am," which confirms to all of us that he's not from New Jersey, because no way would I ever say that at all. So him saying "yes, ma'am" feels very Southern, but we're here in Georgia. You all get it. You have to do it. I've told the story on one of my podcasts before where I didn't say "yes, sir" to my basketball coach telling me to run a lap, and someone on my team like grabbed me by my collar, was like, "You have to say "yes, sir." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "Because he told you to run any laps." And I was like, "I am running them." He was like, "But you also have to say "yes, sir." I was like, "Where am I? What is this place?" The South. So he says, "Yes, ma'am," and Jason feels a bit lightheaded, but Piper looks gorgeous to him. Smoldering hair, a smudged face, cut up arms, a torn dress. She's missing a boot. Quote, "beautiful."
So how does "you look like a mess" rank with "you don't know you're beautiful" as an excuse for why she's beautiful?
I like "you look like a mess" more because, I don't know, I've gone to one of Kelly's soccer games before, and you're a little dirty, a little sweaty, the hair's messed up. Like, I can see it. Yeah, I get that. But I think this is definitely better than, the One Direction of like, the key to you being hot is you not knowing that you're hot. And then what we just heard, what Bruno Mars was it to the, "Oh, you're amazing just the way you are." It was weird that there was like a run in 2010 to 2014 where music was like, we got to write songs about these girls being pretty, but they got to make sure they don't know it, or we're the one to inform them. Hello, it's me, Bruno Mars. So I think this is good. I'm okay with this. I think this is a better version of, like, no, don't do makeup or whatever. Like, I think this is cool. Like, yeah, if she's like gone through all this stuff and looks like rough, but like intimidating and powerful, like, yeah, that's cool. I dig it. Jason sees Leo near a piece of construction equipment, quote, "a long cannon-like thing with a single massive piston, the edge broken clean off." And that was confusing to me. I'm sure if I went back and referenced whatever stuff Leo described, I would get it, but I like that Jason's description of construction equipment is how my brain is working for construction equipment, which I see and I go, yeah, it's probably for construction.
Yeah. I could have Googled what a hydraulic axe looks like, but yeah, I'm with you. It's just like, it's a thing.
It's a thing. Whatever. It's a Jason chapter. We don't have to worry about it. But the key thing is that something was broken off, and we learned that what's broken off is a big axe blade that is the size of a washing machine, which is big, and that is lodged into Enchiladas' breastplate. So very nice work from Leo. Enchiladas, unfortunately, though, pulls it free, yells in pain, which causes the mountain to shake, and then he rises to his feet, even though his armor is soaked in ichor. And this, at first, I thought was like a good sign. I was like, oh, okay, he's bleeding. This is very Rocky IV. He's not a machine. He's a man. Like, he's bleeding. This is good. I like the 4 people of the nerd crowd who've seen Rocky IV. It's a good one. It's the most American one. He wins the Cold War with boxing. It's great. So then Enchiladas grabs his spear and says, "Good try, but I cannot be beaten." And I wrote, "We'll see." But then I immediately wrote, "Oh," because the armor fixes itself, which I didn't think could happen. The armor fixes itself. The ichor stops flowing. And then I wrote, maybe we are seeing.
You hate it when the boss regenerates.
Yeah, never fun. Like when you defeat a certain boss in a certain video game I talk about all the time, and the first life bar goes away, and you're like, I did it. And then it's like, second life bar. Oh, no. Even all of the little cuts that Jason gave to him on his lower half become scars. And I like, as the narrator, he says something to the effect of like, which Jason took a lot of time to make. Like, I like that he's most upset. I'm like, I put so much effort into those. Come on, I spent so much time. Leo then joins the other two. He curses and then says, "What is it with this guy? Die already!" Which is perfect and very much me playing video games. I love this a lot. Now, Enchiladas continues, and he explains what's going on. He says that fate prevents giants from being killed by gods or heroes. So then I wrote, hedge! Come on, time to shine, bud. Get up. He's still knocked out.
I am no man.
I am a satyr. Like, come on. Oh, I see what you're doing. Lord of the Rings reference. I've seen those movies enough time to where Kelly decided to marry me. So Jason corrects that it has to be by them together. And Enchiladas drops the smile so Jason knows he's right. And then he checks. No, I'm right, aren't I? It has to be demigods and gods together.
Right track.
And Enchiladas just responds with, "You will not live long enough to try," which is just a non-answer enough to know that Jason was right. So then I wrote in my notes, it's a shame that they can't just attack him while he's less than mobile and stuck in a 30-foot deep glass pit. Feels like it would be hard for him to get out of this. And then the next line talks about him trying to run up the side of the glass pit and struggling a little bit. I was like, see? It's perfect. They've got him right where they want him, but they can't do anything unless they have a god. So Leo does ask, does anyone have a spare god handy? Which I appreciate Leo checking. You might as well check. There were not enough times where Harry Potter was like, Accio bazooka, or like, there was not enough just like, oh, we need this one thing to achieve. He didn't go like, Accio, the prophecy from book 5. Like, there wasn't enough, like, let's just see what happens.
Anybody got a Deus Ex Machina?
Right, like,
really use a miracle.
Yeah, we just fast forward. So I like that Leo's like, anybody got a god? Jason looks into the pit and his heart sinks as he realizes what has to happen. And I didn't like heart sinking. I was like, is Jason gonna sacrifice himself? I don't know. Then he tells Leo to get rope from his tool belt. And I was like, is he gonna be bait? What's the rope for? I was very worried that Jason was going to do something quite rash. And then he does. Even before the rash thing that I was thinking of, he just leaps at Enchiladas, and then Piper Charm speaks, look behind you. Classic Marty McFly move from Piper. And it does work. I also like narrator Jason notes that it works on him too. Yeah. So I'm wondering if mid-jump he's like, what is behind him? Huh? And then falls down. But he's able to tackle Enchilada's legs. And after he does this, they kind of stumble around a little bit, and then he gets on Enchilada's shoulders. At first, I forgot that he is 4 Shaquille O'Neal's tall, and he would have really big shoulders. But at first, I was like, oh, cute, a piggyback ride. That's fun. But then he describes, as the narrator, Enchilada screaming for him to get off and trying to hit him, and Jason can scurry about. And I was like, scurry about? Oh, right, he's 30 feet tall. His biceps are canonically the size of Leo, so he's going to have a lot of surface area up there in the shoulder department. He has not skipped upper arm back day. So when you go to the gym, so he screams for him to get off. Jason's scurrying around to avoid these grasps. And then Jason prays to Zeus. And he offers to Zeus that I just want my friends to be safe. I care about their safety first and foremost. I am willing to sacrifice my own life for you to save them. And that is very sweet of Jason. He still hasn't really learned his full backstory. He doesn't know what's going on, but he knows what's up, and he cares enough about Piper and Leo to say, no, take me and then get rid of them. Let's do this. And I thought that was really big of him. And Jason can then smell a storm coming. And I was like, no way. There's no way. He's that easy? Is he really?
I was like, do that?
Is he? So he smells a storm coming. Darkness swallows the sun. Enchilada senses what's happening and stops. Jason yells to Piper and Leo to hit the deck. All of Jason's hairs stand up, and then we hear a loud crack. And then we get this quote. Lightning surged through Jason's body, straight through Enchiladas and into the ground. The giant's back stiffened, and Jason was thrown clear. When he regained his bearings, he was slipping down the side of the crater, and the crater was cracking open. The lightning bolt had split the mountain itself. The earth rumbled and tore apart, and Enchiladas' legs slid into the chasm. He clawed helplessly at the glassy sides of the pit, and just for a moment managed to hold on to the edge, his hands trembling. Very cool description. Love when Uncle Rick does this. But
is that a thing that lightning can do? Can lightning like blow the ground? And
oh man, I don't know. I don't remember enough from If There Was a Magic School Bus episode about lightning to teach me the science of it. I know there's the whole thing where it's like, fun fact, lightning actually comes from the ground up. And I'm always like, have you seen it before? I'm not so sure. But maybe. I think it does. So maybe it's it's such a powerful bolt of lightning that from the contact point with the ground, it kind of makes a break. The other option is you can just go yada yada Greek mythology. And because he's not, Poseidon's what? Earthshaker or whatever? Not Zeus?
He's the earthquake guy.
Yeah, so maybe it's just one of these things, or it's just their power combined because we have demigod and god. But with this description, I was like, oh, cool. Jason didn't explode, so I feel like he's gonna be okay. Like, Zeus took mercy on him, which is nice. And it's good to see that Zeus was actually gonna help out here. We had the thing in the Aeolus chapter where it seemed like Zeus was trying to help out. He was in Aeolus's ear, trying to make sure or tell him, like, yo, do my kid a solid. So the fact that he's actually doing his kid a solid, I think that's nice. So not only was he going to help, but he also made sure to not kill him. Pretty cool.
I did have like a suspicious thought of, would Zeus have done this for any one of his kids, or did he do this for Hera?
Oh, Oh, because Hera's got the special relationship with Jason.
Yeah, and he needs Jason to stay alive to save Hera.
Ah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder if we'll have some sort of resolution because clearly Zeus was like invested in this, but he's definitely showing more kindness. I don't think it's just because Jason is his kid, because we didn't see Zeus be particularly nice to Thalia. Like, he had to have a discussion with the Olympians about whether or not to destroy her in book 3. Like, it wasn't just I think he did vote to save her, but it wasn't an immediate like, so we're not killing my daughter, right, guys? It was like, well, let's hear everybody out, you know?
And he let her spend like a decade as a tree.
That's also true, but that's the only way he could have saved her from that fate. That's the only solution to that problem, was turn her into a tree. You can't, there's no way. Cyclopes, they can't defeat trees. It's in the books. So I don't think it's just because he is his son, but I wonder if it's because of Hera or if it's because like special treatment where Poseidon's like, sure, I have kids, but you're my favorite, Percy. I wonder if Zeus has that kind of thing with Jason, or if you're right, if it is the Hera angle of it all.
I do also am curious about this gods and demigods have to work together, which is entirely a narrative device. Like, even within the story, there's no like mechanical reason that Jason needed to be there. You know, it's like Zeus did most of the heavy lifting with this thing, but like because of fate, Zeus had to funnel it through Jason. You know,
you're saying like the gods and demigods working together doesn't have to be literal. It doesn't have to be like we're both touching you as you die.
Right.
Like, it's not like a 2-key turn system where you're like we both have to do it at the same time. Yeah, it's just like Jason
they have to get along.
There.
Yeah, it's this weird thing that's like purely a like make them get along and respect each other kind of thing.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. I don't know if
because otherwise it's just like the demigods are distracting the giants and the gods actually do the smiting.
That's interesting. It's a good thought. I wonder what actually happened the last time this happened, because when they talked about taking over and defeating the giants and everything in that earlier war, they just said that the demigods and gods work together, but they didn't say how. They didn't say if it was like individual things. So I wonder if we'll get like a recount of all of the stuff. Like, is it always like a demigod and then that demigod's parent working together, or will we get cool synergy where, I don't know, we've got Leo doing something, but then Artemis fires an arrow through some guy's face or something like that? Does it have to be Leo?
Whatever god's on call that day.
Yeah, like spice it up. Let's get some combos going. It doesn't just have to be the 1-to-1. Like, let's mix it up a little bit. So anyway, we have enchiladas clinging on the sides of an edge of a cracked thing. So I wrote, long live the king him, long live the king him, go Scar, just, no, give it to him, come on. But enchiladas stares daggers at Jason and tells Jason that he's won nothing. And he warns that his brothers, who are 10 times stronger, are rising and they will destroy the gods and their roots. And then he begins to list off all of who is going to die, but then he loses his grip and falls into the crevice, which is great. Mid-villain monologue to die, fantastic. I would have loved to continue to hear it. I would have loved if Jason did a long live the king thing a la Scar Mufasa, but I do still think this is very funny for mid-vamping to die. So the earth shakes. Jason falls towards the rift. Leo throws the rope for Jason and tells him to grab on. He does. They pull him up. The chasm closes like an angry mouth, and the ground pulling effect from Gia stops. So for now, Gia has been halted. The mountain, though, is still on fire. There is still smoke all around, and then Jason sees a helicopter heading towards them. The scene around them is a mess. There's piles of clay from the defeated 6-armed dudes. There are discarded rock weapons from the 6-armed dudes. There's loincloths from the 6-armed dudes. There's broken construction equipment from the 6-armed dudes and Leo. And all of this is on top of torched ground. Hedge finally comes to, and it's like, oh, right, Hedge is here. Yeah, Hedge. Okay, cool. I love Hedge. So he comes to, and previously in the last episode, I had wondered, what is Coach Hedge going to say when he comes back to life? And I had predicted that Coach Hedge was going to take credit for contributing to the fight. I didn't realize he would take credit for the entire fight, because he comes back to and he asks, did I do this? And before Jason can before Jason can even reply, Hedge gets to his feet and says, yeah, you wanted some hoof? I gave you some hoof cupcakes. Who's the goat? Huh? And Rick continues to be prophetic and make references that are relevant to modern vernacular back in 2010, because his saying of who's the goat is definitely a who's the man joke. Like, oh yeah, who's the man? I'm the man. But I'm a goat. So who's the goat? I'm the goat. But now, as we say many, many times in common vernacular, we just say who's the goat, as in who's the greatest of all time, GOAT, which we did double check back.
We did do some fact checking, and it is possible because that usage has been around since like the 1990s. It started with Muhammad Ali and then, got used with Michael Jordan and LeBron James stuff. So it's possible that he knew about that acronym.
Right. I just, thinking back to 2010, I don't feel like it was as common to be like, who's the GOAT? I feel like there was a little bit later when that came more into play. But a fun fact that we did learn about it is that Muhammad Ali called himself the greatest, but then it was his wife.
Or everyone else did.
Well, yes, whatever it was, he was known as the greatest. And he would say, like, I'm the greatest and stuff like that. But then his wife is the one who elevated it from greatest to the greatest of all time. And then the GOAT thing came into play. And it's like, shout out to Muhammad Ali's wife. That is an incredible upgrade of nickname. Such lasting power. So good.
So now you all know.
Now you all know. Fun facts. Here we are. We're learning at the podcast live show. So he says, who's the GOAT, huh? And I just think it's fantastic. And also a reason that it's not a greatest of all time reference is that who's the GOAT? GOAT was in lowercase. If he wanted to do a thing where it fit like grammatically in the text and then also was a joke, the whole thing could have been who's the GOAT, huh? In caps lock, but it wasn't in caps lock. And when you do GOAT as in who's the GOAT, it's supposed to be GOAT because it's an acronym.
Devil's advocate. Coach Hedge is not making this pun. So he's literally...
Oh, yes.
He's literally saying who's the man.
I am saying Uncle Rick, the author, if he wanted to go to pun stuff, could have caps locked it. And then we wouldn't have known. It would be a big mystery. So Hedge, after laying down these incredible lines, also starts to do a little dance, which is so fun. I want to see what exactly this dance looks like, but he does a little dance. Leo smiles. Jason can't help but laugh, and he laughs in like a wild, frenetic way that he recognizes is kind of a bit of a, okay, buddy, laugh, but he doesn't care because he's so relieved. But that's what laughter is. Like, that's why you will laugh.
We're alive.
That's why you will laugh after things happen in horror movies or after a roller coaster or whatever. Like, it's part of a relief. So, like, that's natural. Don't worry about it, Jason. But also, like, yeah, I don't think Leo and Piper are going to be like, oh, did you remember when Jason laughed all weird like after he wasn't dead? What a dweeb. Then a man walks across, and I was like, who's this? And they say it's Tristan. I'm like, right, Piper's dad has been here the whole time. And I completely...
that guy.
Completely forgot about this. Right, the guy we're here to save. The whole reason we're on Mount Diablo. So he walks across. Clearly things are going well if he's walking. Now, before he can finish asking Piper what is going on, she rushes over to him and gives him a huge hug. And Jason thinks that Tristan is kind of like the anti-Jason, and that he has too many memories and he has too much trauma to process, whereas Jason doesn't really know what's going on. But Tristan clearly has too much going on. And this had me worried that they were going to use the potion. We had the thing in the previous chapter, which you all heard the clip of the audiobook from, where Aphrodite gave that potion to Piper to give to him so he'll forget his recent memories. And like, I kind of want him to avoid this at this point. So I didn't love this because it feels like they're setting it up to where he's going to drink it, but we'll just have to see. Jason then says that they have to get him out of here. And Leo asks how, because he's in no state to walk. And I wrote, he was just walking. Maybe he got worse since walking.
It does say he staggered forward, so.
In the initial time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So someone staggered across, they didn't walk across?
Yeah. He wasn't, like, jogging over. You know?
Okay, yeah. Hey, what's going on? I'm just really traumatized right now, but happy to be here. Gotta get my steps in. I've been tied to a pole for a week. So when Leo asked, how are we going to do this? I'm thinking, the aforementioned helicopter. Let's go in that helicopter. And I'm wondering, what could this helicopter be? Like, it could be a news helicopter. It could be some sort of like emergency 911 helicopter. Someone could have called about like, I don't know, someone at the coffee shop room before. It could have been like, hi, 911. Mount Diablo's on fire. I know it's called Mount Diablo, but it's on fire? It's not usually.
It's not literal, right?
It's not usually on fire, right? So it could have been that. But then I was wondering, is it Mr. Dare's helicopter? Is Rachel coming through? That would have been a cool crossover. But
let the earth swallow that, dude.
Oh, how fitting. It would be so fitting. Jason looks up at the helicopter and asks Leo, can you make us a bullhorn or something? Piper has some talking to do, which I thought was very cool. We didn't learn what the helicopter is, but we should learn in the future. That's the end of chapter 44, which I've decided to retitle, We Feed Our Mother Enchiladas, which I know only works because of my refusal to say enchiladas or however people want me to pronounce it, but feeding it, especially because they said it went in like an angry mouth, just too good to pass up. Do you have a retitling of chapter 44?
I get by with a little help from my dad.
Oh,
yeah. Kind of cute.
I like that. That's good. Now, what you might be thinking is, hold on, Mike, I followed the News Olympian on social media, and you said that we were going to be covering chapters 43 and 44 at the live show, and we've not even taken intermission, and you've already covered chapters 43 and 44.
At the top of this episode.
And that was a lie. Because instead what we've done, because these chapters are a lot shorter, that's part of the thing of me not being able to read ahead. Normally, the chapters have all been the same, but these next couple of chapters are all pretty short. So instead of just doing chapters 43 and 44 at the show, we will also be doing chapters 45 and 46 at the show, which are very impactful chapters. So we will be getting into those at the end of the show. We're going to do the beginning of chapter 45 until we get to the point where we take our break for the first act. Now, if you've read chapter 45, you know it's a huge bummer. Super duper sad. We will not be ending the show on chapter 45. And
just act one.
I'm going to see if we can get to a point
Everyone, go
where
get
we
snacks
get a
while you're
chunk
sad.
of it done. Yeah, wipe up your tears with merch. We have t-shirts. So I'm going to do the beginning of chapter 45 up until the point where we take our break for Act 1, and we'll see if we can find a good non-bummer place to end this for intermission. So now let's get into chapter 45, which is called Piper. Now, this one begins with the line, quote, borrowing the helicopter was easy. Getting her dad on board was not. So clearly that was a struggle, but let's see what happens. It only took a few words through the improvised bullhorn to get the pilot to land on Mount Diablo. And I need to know what were the components of the improvised bullhorn, because they didn't just say he pulled out a bullhorn or he pulled out a megaphone. I need to know what you MacGyvered together to make an improvised bullhorn. What could it be?
This is the one that you're worried about?
I just want to know.
The thing that you can literally make with a piece of paper wrapped up?
I guess. Yeah.
Not the little, widget thing from the last chapter that fully controlled a bulldozer?
No, I guess I'm
You had no questions about that one?
I guess I just want to know, what, because it's not just, I guess maybe piece of paper, or I guess you could have got sandpaper, but I just want to know what thing that fits in the, we've got the Venn diagram of can be used as bullhorn is in a tool shop to where it would be in Leo's tool belt. I just want to know what's in the middle there. And I guess, maybe
it's a bunch of little things. It's not one, he just keeps pulling and it doesn't have to be one item.
Yeah, right. But I just want to know what was the thing that made the bullhorn. I'm going to live in the fact that it was one of those big sheets of sandpaper, and then he rolled it up to be a cheerleader thing, and it was go team, land here. So, improvised bullhorn, they get this down. Piper Charm speaks to them, and we learn that it is a Park Service copter, and it is big enough for medical evacuations and search and rescue and stuff like that. Piper is able to convince the pilot to take them to the Oakland airport, and then I figured, okay, yeah, sure, that'll work, to go to some other part of California, not thinking of the actual reason they're going to the Oakland airport, which we will learn soon. Tristan is still recounting the horrors while Jason and Leo lug him into the chopper. And Hedge grabs all of their stuff, and thankfully, he has his pants and his shoes back on, so that's one fewer thing for Tristan to have to add to his "what is going on" list tracker. Just one less level of, oh my God, what the heck
and also,
is all of this?
Coach Hedge really liked those clothes.
They're good clothes, they're good shoes, good vibes. He's wearing the outfit from The Mask. Come on, it's fun. Piper doesn't know what the monsters did to her dad to break him so thoroughly that he is crying like a little boy, but she also doesn't think that she can stomach to find out, so she doesn't ask about it. She has to charm speak her dad into calming down, which she feels gross about, but she knows it's necessary. He's in a really tough spot. I have to do this. I don't like it, but I got to do it. And he sees the helicopter blades start up, and it reminds him of the blades that the six-armed beasts, the Earthborn, had on their machines. And the pilot asks, what's wrong with Tristan? And Jason says, it's either smoke inhalation or heat exhaustion. And I like him just being this'll work, right? And the pilot suggests we should take him to the hospital. And Piper Charm speaks to go, no, it's okay. The airport is good. And then the pilot replies, yeah, the airport is good. But then, and I love this, she frowns like she's unsure of why she changed her mind, which is great. And then she asks, isn't that Tristan McLean, the guy from the movies? And then Piper goes, no, he only looks like him. Forget it.
This is not the movie star you are looking for.
Exactly. The pilot agrees and then says, I've lost my train of thought, and then decides we should get moving. So then they decide to go. And I think we're only going to get into Bummertown now. So let's take a break for intermission. So if you're listening to the podcast at home, we'll take a break for the Lost Euro. So everyone, let's say goodbye to the podcast people.
Goodbye, podcast people.
Hello and welcome to the Lost Euro Shubio edition. I am back in New York City after a little 26-hour jaunt in Toronto for a live show, but I've got some updates for you for the podcast. First, one is very time sensitive because I've got something happening later today if you're listening to this on the day it came out, but there's a replay of it if you're listening to it after the fact. So the plan for the Toronto show was for me to cover chapters 3 and 4 and then read the last page of chapter 4 live, because I was told by a listener, Sadie Lynn, and some other people that the ending of the chapter is like this big whoa shocker moment, and I hadn't read it before the show and I was going to try and read it live, but the chapters are very long and chunky, so I didn't even finish chapter 4 on stage. What we're going to be doing is a stream of me and Jenna, the guest for that live show, where you have to finish talking about the chapter in order to make the episodes work. I think we're going to split chapter 3 into its own episode and chapter 4 into its own episode. So Jenna and I are later going to be recording the rest of chapter 4, and I'm going to live stream the part of it where I read the last page live to the TNO Patreon. So if you're any level of TNO patron, you'll be able to watch this, and there will be a replay, and it'll stay up forever, so no time-sensitive thing, but if you join the TNO Patreon, you can find it. I don't know what happens on that last page, so we're going to see together, and there'll also be a live chat replay on it, so if you're in the YouTube live chat and stuff, and you want to see what people are saying, if there is like this big reaction. So that is at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on today, Monday, October 7th, but the replay will be up forever. Now, speaking of the Patreon, just a Patreon update sort of thing that you may have seen if you have a Patreon account, but this is happening in November. There's a thing going on with the Patreon payment system and the Apple App Store. Apple does the thing where they upcharge apps 30% or something of the profits, and now Patreon is trying to pass that on to you, the consumer. So basically, if you've signed up for the TNO Patreon with Apple, like if you did it through your iPhone or your iPad or something through the App Store, if that's where you did the payment, starting in November, it's going to up that charge to where the 30% price increase will be sent to you. So a $10 a month situation would become a $13 a month situation. So if you want to avoid this, all you have to do is set up your payment to go through the Patreon website. So if you actually sign up via patreon.com. I'm not sure of the full 100% details. I think they probably sent you an email of it, and I will be sharing something on the Patreon because they sent me something as well. So I'll probably just put a screenshot of what they sent me, but I don't know the full details of it. I think Patreon support might be more helpful than I am. I just wanted to let you all know that if you've signed up for the TNO Patreon and you did it through the App Store, you should change it to where you do it directly through the website so that you save the 30%. Now, for something fun that's on the Patreon, we have a new thing happening on the TNO Discord. So any TNO tier, $5 a month and above, gets access to the TNO Discord, which has a bunch of fun channels. And we have a new channel, the Trials of Kelly. So Kelly is reading Trials of Apollo for the first time, and she really wants to talk to someone about it. She really wanted to talk to me about it, obviously, but she can't, obviously. And she was going to explode if she didn't have someone that she could gab back and forth with about it. So we set up a Discord channel so that she can vent and talk about her feelings and all that kind of stuff with some folks. So if you want to get in on the action, you can check that out in the Discord. I think I called it Kelly's TOA book club or something like that. And it is going to be a goofy time. I'm sure it's already very fun. I obviously cannot read it, but Kelly's been having a good time. And I believe people in the Discord have been having a good time. So if you needed an excuse to read Trials of Apollo or reread it, or you just want to see what Kelly's thoughts are and you want to, have a similar TNO experience, but you don't want to wait a couple of years before I get to Trials of Apollo, go to the Trials of Kelly in the TNO Discord. Now, I mentioned live shows. We have other live shows coming up soon. This Sunday, we've got the 2-pack of shows in Boston on October 13th. Liam Crowley is going to be the guest. I posted on Instagram what chapters we will be covering, and the late show is sold out. The early show still does have some tickets left. You should come through. They're both different. We're covering different chapters at each show. It's going to be chapters 7 and 8 at the 3 p.m. show and chapters 9 and 10 at the 7:30 p.m. show. You can come to both. It'll be fun. I'll be at both shows, so it'll be a good time. Then also we've got a show in New Orleans and Dallas and Philly and Vienna, Virginia, the reschedule, and Austin, Texas as well. If you want to see when we're coming, see all those dates and stuff, head on over to thenewestolympian.com/live. Now, I mentioned the Patreon. I'm going to give a shout out to the folks who have joined the Patreon most recently. So shout out to our newest Super God tier patron, Gleason's Cupcakes. Shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Tanya Urkkala, daughter of Demeter, JC, Laura Grace McSwain, Sydney Case, Kells, Zayden Wintergate, Link Not Zelda, Danny Banani, and Charlotte Dory. And shout out to our newest Demigod tier patrons, Claire M, Sorcha Dolan, Chelsea Doring, Devin Fitzgerald, Elizabeth Bryce, Christian Mendoza, Average Anime, Becca, Eleanor Sinclair, Hannah, Abby Smith, Kyle Peck, Tondia, and Josie H. And a name correction for Yanatila and Jonathan Colum Valdivia. Thank you all so much for your support. May Demeter bless you that if you're ever having a crunchy food, whether that's like pretzels or chips or something, you don't accidentally scrape the roof of your mouth with the crunchy food and then have to deal with that for the rest of the day. She's got a grain and cereal came up that feels crunchy and stuff, but hopefully you're safe. Now, if you're all caught up on the News Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast to consume, you're in luck, because I have a lot of other podcasts that I make and they are ready for your consumption. One of the podcasts that you could check out is a show that I make called Horse. Horse is a comedic basketball podcast that I co-host with my buddy and professional stand-up comedian Adam Mamawala. And every other week we talk about everything that's going on in the NBA and the WNBA currently, and then we'll do some fun other segments that usually get into NBA and WNBA and general basketball history. We've got a fun episode for you that will release this week where we are going through all of the NBA City Edition jerseys that were leaked. We've got our annual NBA drama draft coming up soon. We're currently talking about the WNBA playoffs. Lots of fun stuff going on right now at Horse, and you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Horse or by going to our website, horsehoops.com. Now, unless you're listening on Patreon or you get access to ad-free episodes, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't are inserted locally. So if you live in Uzbekistan, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Uzbek. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The News Olympian.
Hope you all had a good intermission. Missed you all so dearly. Let's get into where we left off.
Who's ready to process parental trauma?
Right. So where did we last leave things off? It was when stuff was about to get sad. Let's get emotional. So the pilot agrees and they start to get moving. Jason is impressed with Piper, but Piper feels miserable. She hates twisting people's minds like this. It feels like something that Drew or Medea would do, not her. She also thinks that this won't help her dad in the long run because she will not be able to convince him that nothing happened and that all is well. His trauma is too deep. And again, I'm just thinking at this point, don't use the potion. Come on, don't use the potion. They finally get Tristan on board the helicopter. The chopper takes off, and the pilot gets loads of questions over the radio asking where she is going because, her coworkers are seeing a chopper go to the Oakland airport instead of to the hospital. So I worry a lot for her coworkers. They're like, what is Renee doing? What's going on? Tristan asks Piper if it's really her and tells Piper that these monsters told him that horrible things would happen to her. Piper confirms that it is her and assures him that everything is going to be okay. Tristan is shocked that they were actual monsters. They sound like the ones that were in Grandpa Tom's stories, but they've come to life. And he says that Mother Earth was angry with him, and he calls enchiladas a sul kalu, which feels like Cherokee spelling. There was enough stuff accent-wise that didn't feel like Greek.
Surely Rick wouldn't just make up a word. I feel like he would,
I guess what I'm trying to say is this feels like a specific Cherokee word. I wonder if it is just for giant or if there is a Cherokee story of something that is incredibly reminiscent reminiscent of enchiladas. So I guess I'll have to ask Dr. Moya if she knows about this, or I could ask Delia Gallegos, who is Cherokee. So I'll have to figure out exactly what's going on with Sul Kalu. But Tristan has glazed over eyes at this point, and he continues saying that they told him that Piper was a demigod and that her mom was. And then Piper finishes the sentence. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt that he trailed off, because it would be weird if he was like explaining this trauma and then she like jumped in like, Aphrodite, goddess of love. Like, yeah, he was gonna get there. So I hope that he said, they said your mom was... And then she filled in the blank. He is struggling to breathe. Leo, Jason, and Hedge all do various things to not make eye contact with the situation. They're looking out the window. They're fiddling with stuff. I completely understand why they're doing this. Piper thinks that this isn't how her dad, the star, is meant to be seen. He should be seen as smooth and in control. That's how he presents himself. And even though Piper has seen this image falter here and there over the years, it's never been to this degree. Piper informs her dad that she didn't know about her mom being Aphrodite until after he was taken. She says that her friends helped her all along the way and that they will make sure no one hurts him ever again. Tristan tells her that he's proud of her. He calls Piper a real hero, not like the fake ones that he plays in movies. And then he looks off into the distance and says, your mother never told me. And Piper relays that Aphrodite thought it was best to not tell him. And even as she explains this, she knows it sucks. She knows this is a whack thing that I don't like, and no amount of charm speak can make this suck any less. And she doesn't say Aphrodite's full concern, which includes him not being able to live with the full knowledge, otherwise he will just be shattered as a human. Piper is feeling around in her pockets for the vial. I, again, didn't want her to do this, but then she second guesses it. She thinks, I can't remove his memories in good conscience, and also, now he's actually proud of me. And she says that he sees her now, and he will continue to see her, and she will never have to fight for his attention again, and she is his hero for once, as opposed to the reverse. So I get this is kind of maybe a bit of a selfish thing, but I also do think it's in his best interest. So I think it's okay. And I think it's completely reasonable for her to at least be torn on the situation. Yeah, I don't want to see my dad struggle, but I do like him knowing these things. And it seems like our relationship could be in a better spot, but at what cost?
Why do you think it's in his best interest? Like, I'm just curious what you're...
I guess it just feels like lying, and I don't know. I just don't like. Look how much Jason is bothered by not being able to remember his stuff. It just kind of feels weird to like delete it. But I think what Piper ends up doing is probably okay because it at least gives him the agency. Yeah. I like giving him the choice to drink it as opposed to Piper being like, "Here, have some water."
Yeah, it's not like Hermione making her parents forget she existed.
Yeah, that's way worse. That's so much worse. So much worse. So she's going back and forth about this, and what she decides to do next is to just detail some of the more innocuous and lower stakes elements of their story so far. So she tells him The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. She talks about the wilderness
Maybe you've
school.
Heard of it.
She talks about the wilderness school, her cabin at Camp Half-Blood, Coach Hedges' antics in this most recent fight, Leo taming a dragon, Jason talking to wolves in Latin. And I do like that it started off as innocuous things of like, oh yeah, the school that I went to and my cabin. Also, my friend tamed a dragon and my other friend talked to wolves in Latin. Like maybe not those. If you're trying to not raise more questions, talking to wolves feels a little in the what category to me. But after saying all this stuff, she can see that Tristan is relaxed a little bit. He's not yet smiling, but he is relaxed. But also, Piper isn't fully sure if he is processing everything that she is saying to him. Now, as the chopper ventures into the East Bay, which they were already in the East Bay, Uncle Rick. They're just, I guess, closer to the bay, but I would call Mount Diablo in the East Bay, regardless, and semantics aside. As the chopper ventures into the East Bay, according to the narrator, Jason tenses up and points at something and asks what it is. Piper sees nothing out of the ordinary, just hills and roads and trees and stuff, so she asks for clarification. And Jason points out a road going through the hills. There's this tunnel that's going through, and Piper then grabs the helmet with the comm system and asks our good pilot friend, what is that? And the pilot replies that it is Highway 24, and the tunnel is Caldecott Tunnel. I probably have driven through this, but I personally don't think it's necessarily a notable enough tunnel where people in the East Bay are like, oh yeah, Caldecott Tunnel. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, the Golden Gate Bridge and Caldecott Tunnel. I've never heard this phrase said before. Maybe I'm out of whack and it's like a super important thing, but I don't know if it's on like name status. It feels like Uncle Rick had a map. So Piper asks why Jason is staring at this, why it's of note, and Jason just stares intently at the tunnel entrance, but says nothing. He looks almost as unsettled as her dad, who has a single tear streaming down his face as he says, "Monsters. I live in a world of monsters."
Any guesses on what the deal is with the Caldecott Tunnel?
I wonder if... I only just thought of this now. Because I'm thinking...
So glad I asked.
I'm glad you asked. When I was reading this, I was like, tunnel? Like, what's the point of a tunnel? Like, why would that be something? I didn't think it was where they were going. I didn't think it would be Wolf House. And we learn in the next chapter, which we will get to, don't worry, that Wolf House is in a separate area. So I wonder, because I do know, spoiler alert, in case you don't know some stuff about Heroes Olympus, the one thing, I would wonder that Camp Jupiter, maybe it's a thing where like you go through this tunnel and like if you have a certain thing, it like teleports you to the camp instead of whatever the road. Or you know how like all those tunnels have those like emergency exits out of the side in case like your car breaks down and you're in a tunnel. Maybe one of those doors is actually like a secret entrance into Camp Jupiter. So that would be my thought, just because they don't bring it up. That we learned that the Wolf House is in a different location, and it feels like the only two things about like we don't know where these things are yet are Wolf House and then the camp that I unfortunately know about just because of the internet being the internet. That's the end of chapter 45. I have retitled it, Who Chopped All These Onions? Because there's lots of crying and they're on a chopper. Do you have a retitling of chapter 45?
I said I answered more than 3 questions.
Oh, that's so good. Well done. Well done. Wow, nice, good. Let's get into chapter 46, which is also called Piper, but we'll recital it. So it begins with, quote, air traffic control didn't want to let an unscheduled helicopter land at the Oakland airport until Piper got on the radio. Then it turned out to be no problem.
She's scary.
We are testing the limits of Piper's ability, because if she can convince all of air traffic control to be okay with this, which is not okay. I have flown out of the Oakland airport a handful of times. I don't know if Oakland airport has this. I'm sure they do, like the private plane section of the airport. So it at least is like maybe a little bit different, but like there has to
needs one person.
But it can't be one. There's so many people that she has to give. It's not just the one person on the phone, like unless it's so powerful to where like, I don't know. There's so many people that have to be convinced to let this be okay. I know it's a book and plot purposes, but
I like it absurd. To be like she's been like honing this ability against Medea and titans and giants and these like mythological creatures. So at this point, like there's no challenge whatsoever to like convincing a mortal of anything. It's just not a consideration anymore.
Yeah, we're getting into
she's way past.
We're getting into the like how many duck-sized horses or horse-sized ducks in the fight, where you're like, how many duck-sized horses could you take in a fight kind of thing, where it's like how
yeah, I've heard the question, but
how
what's the segue?
How the strength to which you must overcome to convince a mortal of charm speak. How many mortals equals one Medea? How many mortals equals one giant? Because she was able to do it for a giant.
Infinite mortals.
Infinite. Oh, so it's just so she could just like hop on the mic and be like, you know,
I'm the president now.
And then we'll be like, yeah. Mm-hmm. No, okay, cool. Yeah, all right, sweet. Yeah, seems like she's very powerful if she can convince air traffic control. So she...
Institution of air...
So they de-helicopter and they're on the tarmac and Jason asks, what now? And Piper doesn't want to be the leader, but she has to be for her dad's sake, at least according to her as the narrator. And I wrote, or for everyone's sake, you're kind of in charge here for the time being. The truth is, she has no plan. She just flew here because that's where her dad's plane is. And I wrote, oh, right, the private jet. But today's the solstice, so they have to save Hera now, even though they don't know where she is or if it's too late. But at the same time, Piper doesn't want to leave her dad. She doesn't think she can leave him in this state. state, not state, but state, you know what I'm saying? She tells the team that she has to get her dad home first, and they look disappointed at first, but then they recognize, okay, yeah, this is understandable. Leo says, we can take things from here, but Tristan insists that Piper stay with the boys to complete the quest. He doesn't want to derail their journey. And then, even better than this, which I already thought was really cool, Coach Hedge interjects to say that he can take care of Tristan. And Piper is floored, and he says, I'm a protector. Protecting is my job, not fighting. The growth of Coach Hedge. We were just wondering about this last night at the live show. And I guess if you're listening to the podcast, you heard us wonder about this a week ago. But we were wondering, why is Coach Hedge so fight heavy? Why doesn't he want to do his protecting? Is it some sort of like crisis of identity? But look at the growth of Coach Hedge. I love it. I love Coach Hedge so much, and this makes me love him even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like more than just a protector lowercase. It's the like uppercase job title of like getting a vulnerable person where they're supposed to go. So it's more than just like, I'm not fit to like be a fighter. It's like, this is an equally important thing because Piper needs to be on this quest. And if I don't step up to take care of her dad, like she won't feel good about saving the world and doing the actual thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really respected that.
I really do. He does sound a bit dejected when he says this, which makes Piper think, maybe the time from a couple minutes ago where I talked about how embarrassing he was trying to fight off the Titan. Maybe that contributed to this. Maybe he's kind of sensitive. And then Hedge straightens and adds, of course, I'm good at fighting too, and then glares at all of them.
Yeah, no,
and then Jason goes, yes, and then Leo goes, terrifying. It's great. Their dynamic is so fun. The four of them by the end, it's really good. Hedge grunts and says he's a protector, and he can do this, and Tristan is right. Piper must carry on with the quest. Piper is having trouble leaving her dad behind, but he opens his arms for a hug, and they embrace each other, and he feels very weak when she hugs him. He just feels like he's trembling in her arms, so she thinks, okay, I'm a bit worried, let's get him to a safe spot. Jason says that they should give the two of them, Piper and Tristan, a minute. So all of them, pilot included, which is great that the pilot's just here, like, just, receiving end of charm person and is just like walking around like an NPC, just like walking into walls and waiting for you to talk to them, standing perfectly still. Yeah. So the pilot joins them as they give them some space. And Tristan tells Piper he feels awful for failing her. And Piper pushes back against this thought, which I think is correct. He was kidnapped. It's not like he did nothing wrong. So then she takes out the vial and explains what it can do. And Tristan doesn't want to forget Piper being a hero, and he asks if wiping my recent memories will include this. And Piper sadly confirms and says that it would be like before. And she uses an assuring tone here. Do we think this is charm speak, or do we think this is just her being genuine? I kind of just thought it was her being genuine. I didn't think she was like trying to charm speak him into making this decision.
I think it's kind of halfway. She forced an assuring tone into her voice, so she is doing something on purpose.
Right.
But I don't think it's trying to help him make up his mind. I think it's just like calming him down, like it will be fine either way, kind of.
Okay, yeah.
Like just the calming.
But not like any sort of manipulation or pushing him.
Yeah. That's how I read it.
Cool. Tristan takes another shaky breath and tells Piper that he loves her, and he always has. He then explains that he sent her away because he didn't want her exposed to his life. He didn't want her exposed to neither his poor upbringing or his ridiculous Hollywood life. He thought that he was protecting her, and then he chuckles thinking about how her life without him doesn't seem to be any safer. So what good did this really do anyway? And though I still disagree with what he did, I at least can see that his heart was in the right place. So I still don't necessarily think that this is a great move, but I'm not going to be as hard on him as I was earlier, where I was like, this dude's a bad parent. Yes, 3 questions and that kind of stuff still sucks, but I can understand wanting her to have a good life, but then also not wanting it to be so much in the other direction where she is on red carpets and starlit stuff and people being paparazzi around her and blah, blah, blah. So I can get it. I still feel like he probably should have and could have done something else, but let's see what's going on. And Piper recognizes that this is genuine. This is the first time that Piper actually believes him saying that he's doing this to protect her. She always thought it was just rationalizing before because his life seemed like this easy breezy joyride. But now she knows that he was acting in her benefit to try to disguise his insecurities. Through all of this, she can tell, oh, this whole facade he puts up is a facade. He is worried inside. He is concerned about being a parent. I get this. And also, as the narrator, she wrote, and now his ability to cope had been destroyed. I was kind of confused about what exactly that was alluding to. Was that just like having his mental capacities together and just like he has too much trauma to be able to like push anything down? Or
yeah, I think it was just that, is that the experience that he's just had has destroyed the ability for him to be an effective parent in his current state.
Okay.
And I think they, go on to say, like, hopefully one day come tell me all this in like a chiller environment.
Yeah,
and we can, kind of start over.
Sure. She offers the vial again, saying that they can talk about this again one day when he's ready. He repeats the "when I'm ready" line and notes that it sounds like he's the one growing up. And I wrote, I mean, you kind of are. He says he's supposed to be the parent. He takes the vial and has a look of hope in his eyes. He tells Piper that he loves her. She says that she loves him. He drinks the liquid. His eyes kind of roll back and he slumps forward. Piper catches him and then the team realizes what's happening. So they rush over. Hedge takes Tristan and says that he got the ranger to call for Tristan's private jet.
Before we move on from parent trauma corner, I wanted to kind of look at the juxtaposition of these first books of Lightning Thief and this one. Because you have the same like narrative structure of these two climaxes.
Yeah.
The quest and the kidnapped parent.
Sure.
So like very clear themes that he's recycling. It's kind of interesting that in this one, it's not like the main character's parent. She's one of the main characters, but it's not like the Percy figure.
Yeah.
And two, the reversal there of like Tristan McLean is the damsel in distress being rescued.
Totally.
Sally Jackson was never like, she was always the parent in the relationship, know?
Yeah.
Even afterwards, it was, and I guess that's the age that like Percy was like 10. So, he didn't question like my mom, she's the greatest.
Sure.
And like, she already knew all of the stuff. So the like reversal here of showing the different phase of life that Uncle Rick's exploring now, of like teenagers finding out your parents aren't perfect and like maybe you actually know more than them sometimes. But yeah, I just thought it was a really cool repeated plot that's just done in a different way.
Yeah, I think it's fun. Yeah, you're exactly right. You have the same sort of formula, but we're learning different lessons from it. And I think that the emotions around the complication of Piper and her relationship to her dad are more present, whereas in the Percy Jackson book, it was kind of just like, well, I got to save my mom. She's my mom. I got to save her. She's my mom. I like her and she's good. This is definitely a more complicated parental dynamic. And I think that's also part of just like these books, they've kind of aged up with the audience. So you can talk about things that are a little more complex, as in my dad is an interesting guy and I don't know how I feel, as opposed to the early one being like, your mom rules.
Yeah,
and like
she's the best.
She's super cool. So I get it. But yeah,
she literally deserves to be.
No, that's
like,
interesting.
The quest revolves around her instead.
Yeah, she's awesome. I hope she makes her way back into the series. Please, Allie, come back. I miss you and your blue food. And Paul, where's Paul? So Hedge says that he got the ranger to call for Tristan's private jet, and he asks Piper for Tristan's home address, and rather than give it to him, Piper feels for Tristan's BlackBerry and hands it to Hedge after thinking that's funny for such a normal item to be saved after such a ridiculous turn of events. So hands that over to him and tells Hedge that it has the address, the phone number of the chauffeur, and all this stuff on it. I'm glad she didn't tell him that it has games on it, because it for sure has Snake on it, and Coach Hedge would definitely be playing Snake. She warns Hedge, though, to avoid talking to Jane, and Hedge gets very excited at the prospect of a villain being, ooh, I've got to fight someone maybe? Oh, let's go. I could be old Hedge. But Hedge then gets with the flight attendant and gets Tristan on board. He comes back down for a round of goodbyes, which I was very excited about. He hugs Piper. He shoots dagger eyes at Jason and Leo and says, you cupcakes, take care of this girl, you hear? Or I'm going to make you do push-ups. And the two boys smile and assure him that they will take care of her. Piper gives him an additional hug, which is great because Piper and him, or at least in Piper's direction, she was kind of not sure and comfortable with him. So the fact that she really appreciates him and what he's doing now, I really love this. So she gives him a big hug and thanks him again. And Hedge says that it'll be no problem because the flight has root beer and veggie enchiladas and 100% linen napkins. To which he says, yum. I want to see some sort of thing where like what fabrics taste the best? You know, like, is it just because the napkins are made out of cloth that they're better than paper napkins? If they were made out of a different fabric, would they be more desirable? I really want to get like a whole cookbook from Grover and Hedge, but it's just inanimate objects and trash and recyclables and compost. Hedge then goes in with Tristan, and his shoe falls off as he enters the plane, and the flight attendant notices and makes a bit of a face, but then just turns around and does nothing about it. And Piper figures, she's probably seen weirder stuff over the years of working for my dad.
Okay, I know this is a family-friendly podcast. What stranger things has she seen working for, has Tristan McLean been up to than, like, seeing a goat man?
Yeah, I mean, goat man... It is just goat foot, so it's not full goat man. But I don't know, man. Those Hollywood parties, they can get wild. So
maybe it's just like movie magic of like you've seen people in costumes like dressed up as fictional characters, or that would be the PG answer, I guess.
I also could see like, I don't know, Tristan feels like the type to like be on wild. Like I've never been to Burning Man, but I could see him like going to that or some sort of like festival where there's like fire breathers and people that do like circus stuff, and like maybe he's got like a whole gaggle of folks where they're like, goat, whatever, just a goat foot. Like I've seen, you know, someone who swallows knives. I don't know. I can only imagine like a traveling circus, but they're going in his jet for some reason. As the plane goes down the runway, Piper begins to cry, and before she knows it, Jason is hugging her, and Leo is off to the side, awkwardly pulling Kleenex out of his tool belt, because what else can you do? And this is something interesting. They wrote taking Kleenex out of his tool belt. So is the plural of Kleenex Kleenex?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I just always said like Kleenex is, but I usually try to default.
No, that's gross.
Well, I think the real reason I've never pluralized it is because I usually say tissue and then would say tissues plural, because to each their own. I don't know if Georgia does this, but I know there's certain places where like you'll say a brand name instead of a thing. I'm not going to simp for any brands. But I really ran into this when I worked at Papado Seafood Kitchen, and someone once ordered a Coke. I said, what do you want to drink? And they said, oh, can I have a Coke? And I started to write down. They go, oh, I didn't want a Coke. I wanted a Dr. Pepper. And I was like, you said Coke. And they were like, yeah, but I meant I wanted a soda. And I was like, but you didn't say that. You picked one. She's like, I wanted a Dr. Pepper. I was like, why didn't you say you wanted a Dr. Pepper? Like, I definitely spent way too much time because I was like, what is happening? This is unhinged. Like, I know people call soda pop sometimes, but you don't like say I want a Coke when you want a Dr. Pepper. That's just confusing.
I think it was your fault.
Georgia does the same thing. Guys, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Asked a follow-up question.
It's so unhelpful. I know you got the world of Coke here, but Coca-Cola also makes other products. What if you want a Mr. Pibb? I don't know. Is that not a Coke one? It's not? No one wants Mr. Pibb. Oh. What is it, Tab? Is that your one that's like vaguely Dr. Pepper, but is not Dr. Pepper? Yeah, oh, the muddle. Are you all embarrassed by Tab? One day I'll make my way to the world of Coke, but not today.
I also wanted to point out, it specifies that Leo pulls out the Kleenex from his belt. Mm-hmm. At no point does he give it to Piper. So I have to assume that he is also weeping.
Yeah, that's good. That was also very emblematic of us, where I'm going deep in the weeds about the use of a word, and you're getting deep in the weeds of the potential,
I read the book.
The implied emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Jason says that her dad is in good hands, or I guess hooves, and tells Piper that she did an amazing job. She sobs into his shirt and then takes some deep breaths, and then after 7, she decides, that's enough. And she realizes, we gotta get going. They need me. So Piper thanks the team, and she is about to get into how grateful she is and how much they mean to her, but they kind of give her the expression of like, yeah, we know, Piper, we kind of gotta go. So then they just kind of fast forward and they get moving. Then a shimmering light appears near Jason, and I wrote, an Iris message? And it is. It's an Iris message. And it's not just an Iris message. It's an Iris message from Thalia. So it is it's a hectic scene behind Thalia. But she does come with good news. They found Hera, and she asks where they are. Piper says that they're in Oakland and asks, where are you? And Thalia says, we're at the Wolf House. And I was screaming in my book, you didn't actually tell us where that is. That's not helpful. You just told Jason, you know where it is. And Jason was like, I don't know my shoe size. What are you talking about? So
literally, she took longer to remind him about his memory than she could have just said, it's in Sonoma Valley.
Yes, God. count the syllables. Just be like, where's that? Sonoma. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know where it is, Jason. You were there one time. Come on, Thalia. We have a world to save.
Get in the sky and you'll see this big battle going on behind me. It's there. It's that place.
But what she does say is that the Wolf House is not too far from them. Like, great, a clue. What are we doing? Playing Where in the World is Carmen San Diego? She tells them that they have to arrive before sunset or it's all over because they cannot hold off these goons forever. Piper is excited that it isn't too late, but Thalia tempers the excitement by saying it's worse than they thought, and Porphyrion is rising. She tells Jason to hurry, and Jason pleads. We've had some Porphyrion mentions. Okay, yeah. She tells Jason to hurry, and Jason pleads with her, where is the Wolf House?
Hurry to
this
where?
This is taking so long. You're talking about not having enough time, and we're playing Riddlestown in order to figure out where this thing, just get to the point. She says, the park, Jack London, remember? No, he's Jason. He doesn't remember anything.
Except he kind of does.
He kind of does. It means nothing to Piper, but Jason looks like he just got shot. He stumbles, his face goes white, and then the IM vanishes, I guess because Thalia saw this happening and she was like, he remembers, and then hangs up the call.
Iris Message does not support location services. You can't just send
allow
a ping.
Once? Yeah. Leo asks if Jason is all right and if he knows where Thalia is. And Jason says he does and that she's in Sonoma Valley. So I looked up Jack London Park in Sonoma Valley because I was recently in Sonoma Valley for a wedding and I was like, how funny would it be if I was right there? I was like a 25-minute drive south, so not exactly there, but I was like kind of closer recently. But yeah, it's pretty north up in Sonoma. And he adds that it's not too far by air. Piper turns to the pilot, who has a puzzled look on her face, and Piper charms her to ask if she will help them one last time, and she's on board, because of course she is. Jason says, we can't take a mortal into battle. So then he asks Leo if he thinks that he could fly the helicopter. And Leo lets out a big with a lot of ellipses.
Not yet, but
he
is second.
Unsure. But then he presses his hand on the chopper like he's listening to it. And then he says, Bell 412 HP utility helicopter, composite 4-blade main rotor, cruising speed 22 knots, service ceiling 22,000 feet. The tank is near full. Sure, I can fly it. And I've made this joke earlier in the podcast, but this is definitely the most I know kung fu that this book has ever been. Because apparently with Hephaestus powers, you can put your hand on a machine and then learn how to operate the machine. I'll take it.
He talks to machines.
It's cool. I speak machine, so it works. So he knows kung fu. He can fly it. Piper then charms the pilot again. It's like, give this woman a break. Her brain is scrambled eggs.
Poor lady.
This poor woman who's definitely getting fired and maybe
100%.
Maybe arrested for a federal offense.
Child endangerment.
She might be a felon now. Piper charms the pilot once more, this time asking if it's okay if an underage, unlicensed kid borrows the helicopter. And she promises that they will return it, which they definitely won't.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Over-under that helicopter comes back.
What's the over-under that the helicopter doesn't get destroyed? Like, I feel like it's going to be what? We landed, we got out of the helicopter. And then, Porphyrion
we landed safely at a helipad nearby and then hoofed it the rest of the way to the battle.
Hephaestus, much like he did with Festus's head, zoomed it back to this pilot's place. Yeah, no, that thing's not making it out. But yeah, and also, like, they are on the runway of an airport. So there's going to be cameras everywhere. They're going to see what this woman did. She's going to be locked up forever. What are the implications? We'll never know.
I don't know.
We'll
Maybe
never
it's just
learn.
like a mist thing. Like,
yeah, gosh, whatever. We'll see what the mist did. But this lady's in some deep stuff unless the mist is going overtime. The ranger struggles to get the words out. So finally we've reached like the limit of too many questions. It's like when you do Speak with the Dead in D&D and you have like 5 questions and it's like, all right, you got to get back to the game. So the ranger struggles to get the words out, but she says that she has no problem with it, but I would imagine staggers and stumbles. I have no problem with that. Leo then grins and says, hop in, kids. Uncle Leo's gonna take you for a ride. And as much as I want to do the CSI Miami, yeah, all I can think of is, no. Hop in, kids. Uncle Leo is going to take you for a ride. No.
3 strikes, bud.
3 strikes. You're out of here. You can say, hop in, kids. Uncle Leo's going to take you for a spin, because at least there's no, like, other implication to ride. Hop in, kids. Uncle Leo's going to take you for a ride. Leo, you're in timeout. No. You need different quips. This is a bit too strange and awkward. I know you're trying to say something cool and quirky and fun. You've missed the mark here. And that's the end of the chapter, which I have decided to retitle Everyone Takes a Flight, because they're going on a flight, but then also with like the shot of forgetfulness juice that felt like a flight. Do you have a retitling of this chapter?
It said memories lost and memories found.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is the end of chapter 46. That is the end of this portion of the episode. If you're listening, we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and get into Q&A.
Hey, Mike here once more. Just going to hop in with some corrections, and then we'll take another brief little break for some ads, since this is a longer episode, and then we'll get into the Q&A, which is very fun. So both of these things, I think, come up in the Q&A. Maybe the first thing came up prior, but there's a point in this episode where I talk about soda, and sometimes people referring to all soda as Coke, and I ask Atlanta, the crowd, if they do this, and some people said yes. Someone came up to me after the show and very vehemently said, no, this is not an Atlanta thing. I don't know what people are talking about. The more irrefutable thing is I said, oh yeah, Mr. Pibb, that's a Coke thing, right? And people said no resoundingly. Now, Mr. Pibb was a Coke thing. It is now renamed Pibb Extra, but I feel like me saying Mr. Pibb should make it clear what I was talking about. So the world of Coke City was wrong. I was right. Look at me go. Now, the other thing that's going to come up in Q&A is someone will ask me to make puns for fantasy sports teams. And of course, right after the show ended, I thought of a good one, Artemis's Punters. And I am apologizing here to let you all know that I should have done better on stage and I got nervous, and I sincerely apologize, and I hope you'll forgive me. Now, here's where we're going to take that break for some more ads, and then we'll get back into the Q&A, which is very fun, and you will enjoy it.
But if you're here now, let's get into Q&A. There's some fun stuff. We got some time, so let's do it. So this first one is from Jay Hayes. Says, hi, Mike. I'm here for the Jay Goes to TNO live show part 2, brother edition, with my big brother Blake, who's a casual listener of the show, longtime record and fan, and my family's resident millennial. Yay, millennials, we did it. We're kind of old, and we can never buy a house ever.
What did we do? We did nothing.
We didn't die yet. Here's my question. Do you have a pen? Yes, I brought one because I read this email in the green room. I drove 4 hours from Nashville. Great show last night. I also drove 4 hours from Nashville. Great show last night, by the way.
I drove 4 hours.
4 hours from Nashville. I read a book in the passenger seat. Great show last night. Shout out to my bestie Taylor for going with me to make it tonight, and brought my book for you to sign, and only realized I didn't bring a pen. Michael's magical pen idea from last episode, which you'll all hear later. Sounds really handy. So yes, I have a pen. You're good. I'm happy to sign the book. Now, here's my real question. If our trio, and if you want the original trio, we're going to drive to see their favorite comedy or internet personalities, who would they want to see, and how far would they be willing to drive? I'll get you started. Grover would definitely want to see Hillary Duff, but for him, it's a trick question because cars are bad for the environment. He'd only travel to her if he could do so via public transportation. Thanks for the show, and thanks for moving the mic stand and doing me solid. No problem. I got you. Jay Hayes. So we've got our trio is seeing some sort of like celebrity or band or whatever live. How far would they be willing to go?
Cop-out answer is when?
When?
When do these heroes have time to indulge in pop culture?
I think Percy would go anywhere on the Amtrak to see the White Stripes. I feel like he'd be fine with a good train ride. Clearly, he's okay with it. Annabeth, I don't know that she would have this, like, she doesn't seem like infatuated enough to go very far, so I feel like she would just go to like something in New York if whatever she wants to see is coming to town. I think Piper's probably very over the whole celebrity thing because of her dad, so I don't know that she's going to go particularly far. And Leo feels like a ride or die. He would get in a car and drive like...
He would build a car.
Yeah, and drive across the country. So I think he would go super duper far to see probably some sort of like goofy stand-up comedian or something. I think that feels...
Weird Al.
Weird Al seems right up his alley. Yeah. Okay. This one is from a Protny. Subject line, I thought of this a week ago. Hello from a Protny on the Discord. I was very excited when you announced you were coming to my hometown of Atlanta, and I've had my ticket for months. Nice. I'm a children's librarian here in Atlanta, so here goes.
Nice.
In honor of your new baby, if you had to associate an early literacy children's song, example, Wheels on the Bus, to each of the main demigods in this book and the previous series, as well as Grover and Tyson, which song would you pick for each character? So
I remember none of them, but you're a father,
okay.
so...
Yes, but the problem is I don't sing children's literacy songs to my daughter because I tried to do it. In the hospital, I was trying to sing to rock her to sleep and stuff, and I was singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I realized don't know the words past the main stuff. I don't know the second verse of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I don't know the second verse of a lot of stuff. What I do know the second verse of is Check It Out by the Beastie Boys and Short Skirt Long Jacket by Cake and Work It by Missy Elliott. So my lullabies now to my daughter are songs that I know the words to all of, which is Kim Petra songs and Dottie Fryer songs and other rap stuff, lots of Beastie Boys lullabies. Intergalactic goes very well. So yeah, those are, I still don't know them super well, but let's try to answer this to the best of our ability. Wheels on the Bus feels like it could be a Leo one just because, machinery, transportation, that works. Twinkle Twinkle Little Star could work for Zoe. May she rest in peace. That's good, right? That's pretty good. Let's see. Annabeth would be, I know it's not a children's literacy song, but anything you can do, I can do better feels Annabeth Chasey. Is there a aquatic one for Percy? Is there one row, row, row your boat? That's good. Row, row, row your boat is good. No, do not. No, we're having this hard. Not allowing. I'm going to be a chill parent, but Baby Shark will be banned in this household.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I'm going to try so hard. I hope that none of her friends, it's going to happen. Someone in daycare is going to play it. She's going to come home and be like, I heard this new song. It's called Baby Shark. And I'll be like, nah. Find out who told you.
You'll be lucky if there's nothing worse than Baby Shark by the time.
Is there anything worse than Baby Shark? So
5 years from now?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Let's see. Other children's literacy songs. See, clearly I don't have an expansive knowledge of them. ABCs, yeah. Oh, but you know what? Have you heard I saw an Instagram reel about that. It's the new ABCs where they don't LMNOP it because people combine them and they think it's one letter. It's you still do the same beat, but you just kind of do where it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, X, Y, Z. Now, and then that's it. So it's it fits and you don't have to do the LMNOP. So now, now I never will forget how to say my alphabet. It's so much better. Whoever punched up the alphabet song, kudos. That rules. That could be another Annabeth one, where she would be actually, yeah. So I think that's enough of children's songs. Otherwise, I'll have them all stuck in my head. That was Basic English at the TNO Live Show. All right, this one's from Tia. Tia says, hi, Mike. First, let me say I'm grateful for the timing of your show. I get married in 13 days and I'm stressed, so your show is a very welcome reprieve. You're going to be fine. It's going to be great. Don't worry. You're going to be fantastic. All you got to do is say, I do. It's going to be awesome. Speaking of weddings, if you and Kelly redid your wedding, or maybe did a vow renewal, who from the PJO/HOO universe would be doing what? Best man, DJ, caterer, etc., wedding party, and vendors. So, I'm trying to think who I would do, because we did have a really solid wedding. You were there. It was good. Yeah,
I had a good time.
I don't want to put Grover in charge of catering, because then we'll run out of cups. I feel bad replacing Johnny as the best man with someone I'm not close friends with, so I feel like I want to keep him in that role. Gosh, I could have Coach Hedge not as the DJ, but as
security or something.
Oh, security. That was good because I have said,
really had a wedding crasher problem from what I remember. But
we had to have a security guy because there was a slight chance, and thankfully everyone that's ever come to a live show, no one's been weird, but I was there's not an impossible chance that someone's gonna be weird about this. So we had a security guard, and it was a 90-year-old man. That guy wasn't do anything. So I will say the biggest upgrade will be, instead of this old man who wasn't gonna do anything, Coach Hedge would be the security guard. Unfortunately, he would probably beat up everyone, and maybe it would be the other end of the extreme, but if we could find that middle ground, it would be fantastic. Okay, this one is from John. John says, Mike and Mike, what are some good TNO/PJO themed fantasy team names? Long Island Half-Bloods did not do so well. So if we got to help do someone's fantasy team name, we got to do it. Trying trying to think of any sort of sports thing.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so it's like Viva Fantasy Sports. You try to come up with some sort of like pun name for your team.
Oh, gotcha.
What are you gonna do? It's hard because like you always want to do it like by the sport and stuff like that. Man, if you have a baseball one, you could be like Grover the fence instead of over the fence for like home runs. Thanks for all the groans. That makes me feel real good. Makes me feel real good. If you're a league that has like an expensive like buy-in like fantasy football, you could do like hedging my bets in honor of Coach Hedge. If you think it's a long shot, you can make it like the pipe dream in terms of Piper. And then let's see. I don't really know. Sorry about that. I'm bad at this. I usually just name it after like a player and then I do some sort of pun on the last name, which is usually easier sports-wise. So that's that. Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't help you on that one.
Hey, it's okay. These things take time. You can't just do them in 30 seconds live on stage when everyone's staring at you, being like, be funny. This one is from Robin. Absolutely no offense.
Did you do like a lot of improv comedy?
I did. That's why this is extra embarrassing. But the improv comedy is not like, hello, come up with make a sports and Percy Jackson pun at the same time. Absolutely no offense, but are you matching with Coach Hedge on purpose? In the book, he has on canary yellow pants when he awakens from getting knocked out. Is this just a coincidence? Robin S. Jackson. So it wasn't an intentional Coach Hedge thing, but the outfit is very intentional. And every outfit that I wear to every live show is very intentional, like with the city or something. For example, in Nashville last night, I wore orange pants because Tennessee Volunteers, and then a light blue shirt with spicy peppers on it because hot chicken's like a thing. Then for tonight, I wore gold pants and a navy blue shirt because I was really close to going to Georgia Tech. But I didn't go to Georgia Tech. I went to Rice. I went to early decision, so I had to go. But I was like in the running for like the presidential scholarships. There was like a really good chance I was going to go. But nagging at me, and the reason I ultimately was okay with going early decision to Rice was I went to an all-boys school.
Met me? Oh.
Yeah, it's up. I went to an all-boys high school, and then Georgia Tech, at least at the time I was applying, was 70% dudes and 30% women. And I was like, I've done 4 years of 100% zero. If we could get a 50-50 split, and Rice was 49 male, 51 female, I was like, that sounds really good. So I went to Rice. It wasn't the only factor, but I was very close. So I was like, let me pay homage to the college I almost went to. And I wore Georgia Tech colors, which are also Emory colors, too. So I figured I could make Emory people happy as well. See, I aim to please. And accidentally match Coach Hedge. We're on top of everything. There we go. This one is from Sarah. Subject line, youngest person at the Atlanta live show. Hey, Mike, this is Sarah Ann. I'm 15 and spent my babysitting money to come here. So shout out to my mom for driving me. Shout out to your mom. That rules. That rules. That is so cool. And also shout out to you spending babysitting money on stuff. That was like one of my first jobs was babysitting. I was a babysitter in a baseball umpire and I saved up a bunch of my money and I bought a cool bike and a drum set. So cool on spending on tickets. That rules. Here's my question. If Piper, Jason, and Leo each had to compete in an Olympic sport, what would their sport be? Thanks for a great show and an excuse to hang out with my mom. Love that. Gosh, I can only hope that my daughter thinks I'm cool and will hang out with me. The dream. She's like, oh, Dad, man, stop talking about books all the time. So, we got to do Piper, Jason, and Leo in Olympic sports.
Quick question.
Yes.
Does Fliptide have the same return to your pocket mechanic that Riptide does?
We have not seen that it does.
Okay, good. Because it'd be really bad if he was like a javelin thrower, but it like kept coming back to him.
Right. No, let's
like,
give
didn't
him
land.
Let's give him javelin. That's very good. Piper, it's got to be some sort of performance-based thing, but I don't know of any like vocal performance-y ones, because a lot of things I'm thinking like rhythmic gymnastics and breaking, may it rest in peace, are more physical. Oh, you know what Piper
like
could be?
Dagger throwing or
you know how
some kind of fencing?
Well, you know how in Crew there's like one person who sits in the boat and then like calls out for when people to row? She could do that and then like call it out to them, and then that way with the charm speak they would all be rowing like in exact unison. So that would be her. And then Leo, I would imagine like the only thing that sounds and feels mechanic enough is like the rifle shooting one, like or like in there's also the like big gun one, like the snow one where they shoot the target. Well, it's like you can all tell I'm clearly a guy who loves guns. I went to a gun range once. I fired one bullet. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do it, but my friend was doing it and was like, we're going. And I was like, I can't say no. It was awful. I never want to shoot guns. Guns shouldn't exist. They're terrible. But the big gun one that they do. And then there's also the big gun one where it's the biathlon where they're like, yeah, the two normal things, skiing and shooting stuff. So Leo feels like he could do that because that feels like the most like technology-based thing. I don't know. I saw that really cool-looking person who had all the eye stuff, the Korean woman who looked cool as hell. Like she had all the weird eye gizmos and gadgets. So it feels like Leo could do that in the Olympics. That could probably work. Yeah. Okay. Then this one is from Katie. Katie here, loving the show so far. I wanted to know, since you're such a fan of correct grammar and punctuation, what punctuation marks do you think best fits the vibe of the main characters of each book series? PJO and HOO. Jason would be an ellipses because he doesn't know what's going on. Annabeth would be a semicolon because she's like, I know how to use it. Percy would just be a period. Or no, maybe an exclamation. No, Tyson's an exclamation point.
Yeah.
Jason could also be a question mark because he doesn't know what's going on.
I think Leo is some kind of dash or like parenthetical, just because there's like very ADHD, lots of thoughts going on.
Yeah, and he likes to make little like aside jokes and stuff. Yeah. So parentheses for him.
Maybe Piper is the period because it's like very
Yeah, I like that. 2
commands
points. Command. Yeah, very direct. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Okay. This one is from Daniel. Love the show. If the Percy Jackson series was retold as a VeggieTales movie, which vegetables would represent the trio? Now, Kelly will be very excited about this and very upset that she is not here because she loves VeggieTales. And I did go to Catholic school, but I am not super into VeggieTales. Kelly is more into like the silly songs and stuff. So I'm just trying to pull up like an image of the VeggieTales. I really know like the cucumber.
It's just like name vegetables, really.
Well, no, but they have the personalities. Like the cucumber is Larry and he's like kind of a buffoon. And
is that the question? Which VeggieTales characters?
That's what right? Are you saying like which specific vegetables or are you just like the characters, not just like vegetables? Yeah.
Okay.
All I really know is that the tomato is kind of more like the voice of reason, and the cucumber is like the silly one. That's Larry. And then there is like the kid who's the small asparagus, junior asparagus. Yeah. So that's I know like the other ones, but I don't know their personalities.
Leo is Larry because Larry boy and like all the gadgets.
There we go. Yes. No, that's good. And then more voice of reason. Let's say Annabeth is the tomato, and my poor sweet summer child Nico is junior asparagus. So we're going to go with that. Junior asparagus wears like a backwards diagonal hat. It's adorable.
Oh, I'm familiar.
Oh, you are? Oh, right. Sorry. So this one is from Hannah. Throwback to the first episode for Heroes of Olympus where you talked about the book Holes by Louis Sachar, such a good book, in connection to the Wilderness School. If PJO or HOO characters were to go to Camp Green Lake, what would their camp nicknames be? We will be ending the show on this question because this is very important. I recently reread Holes because I was guessing on that podcast that was aforementioned Pages Past where I read about it. And you know what? Holes still holds up. It slaps. It's good. And I've already like requested the sequel, which I didn't know existed, on Libby. So in a tilde 4 weeks, I'll have that on my e-reader. But we've got to have you read Holes? Are you familiar with the situation of the nicknames in Camp Green Lake and stuff?
Oh, I don't remember if there were like specific rules or it's just like people got nicknames.
So there's a couple of different ways. So you have X-Ray. His is because his name is Rex and it's Pig Latin and he's X-Ray. And it's kind of a funny thing because he wears like these big chunky glasses that he can't really see out of. They nickname Stanley Caveman, I think because of the fossil that he finds. So he like finds a fossil, they call him Caveman.
Okay, so they're just nicknames, right?
Yeah, they're just nicknames. Some are very direct, like armpit smells bad, barf bag used to throw up a lot. But then some are like more creative. But they're all just kind of like one. So it's like Magnet because he steals things.
Leo would be Fidget.
Fidget, that's good. Leo would be Fidget, that's really good. I do think Leo's nickname to Piper of Beauty Queen does track for what the kids at Camp Green Lake would call her. I could see them making fun of Percy, like always.
I mean, you already have Wise Girl and Seaweed Brain.
Yeah, see, that just, those feel like too adorable. Yeah. It's too cute where the kids at Camp Green Lake, like, they're like mostly meaner. They're meaner. I feel like they would make fun of the fact that Percy with his like dry powers can't get wet. So I feel like they would call him like Dry Boy or Dry Guy or something like that. And then, let's see, Jason, they would definitely make fun of his lack of memory.
Who?
Yeah, so maybe they just call him Who, and it's like they go with like the Who's on First kind of stuff. Could be pretty good. And then, what do we have? Grover? The kids would love Grover eating the trash. So maybe they would call him like Trash Can or like Compost or like Garbage Disposal. Like maybe they call him Disposal or something because of that. Yeah, that feels on brand. I could do this forever, but we are at time, and that is the end of the show. Thank you all so much for coming out to the show. I really, really do appreciate it. This has been an absolute blast. This has been so much fun. Give it up to Michael for being an incredible guest. Give it up to Eileen for holding down the fort at the merch table, which you can still swing by on the way out.
Get that merch.
Yeah, shout out to Steven for doing the little clip so I could tell everybody the cool Gia joke that I made. And shout out to everyone here at Eddie's Attic, from setting up the sound to the food that we had to helping us out in the green room and setting everything up. It was a really smooth process, and there was like things that went wrong, but it was all okay. Like all of the things that went wrong were before the show started, which is when you want it to happen. So shout out to everyone here at Eddie's Attic for running a tight ship and helping us squash the problems and make things all work out well. But this has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for like packing the house. We sold a bunch of tickets. That rules. I definitely got to come back to Atlanta at some point. I got to. But until I make my return to talk about whatever book we're on at that point in time, until then, I'll see you later. Thanks so much for coming out, everybody. Yep.
Hello, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campomanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the podcast, you can get involved in a couple of different ways. First, you can support us on Patreon, where you get bonus content. You can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. You can also find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can go to our website, thenewestolympian.com, to learn more about the show. You can check out live shows that we've got coming near you at thenewestolympian.com/live. You can check out our merch page at thenewestolympian.com/merch. That's also where the TNO coffee lives. And for community stuff, we have a subreddit where you can chat with folks, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. And we also have the Discord, which is accessible to all folks on Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, I want to give a shout out to our folks producing at the highest tier, our producer level patrons. Shout out to Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddes, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Julia Kendall, Rike, John Drillsma, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction Coming Up, Ginger Spursboy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Bradimus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Finley McLeod, Sarah Elise Arnson, Bella, Hayden Neal, Percy Jackson, Han Haley Hingleheimer Schmidt, Catherine Sloan, Jessica Phillips, Haley Mary, Jim Jam Koopy, Kitka Crumbs, and Christine Parkin. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth helps the show so much. Whether you post about the show on social media or you reach out to someone directly, someone who you know is a big Percy Jackson fan, or someone you've been trying to convince to get into the Percy Jackson books, saying, hey, there's this podcast, it's called The Newest Olympian, it's really good, you should check it out. Also, you could leave the show a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. Whatever you do to spread the word of the show really does help. I'm appreciative to anyone who has done it in the past, and I'm appreciative to anyone who will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode, where we'll be joined by new guest Jillian Blum to discuss chapters 47 and 48 of The Lost Hero. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So I have a very special ASMR Mike segment this time. I received an email from TNO listener Anastasia saying that they work with pottery and clay, and they sent me 2 ASMR Mike segments. I'm going to use one this time, and then I think one next time. Here's what the email says. Hi Mike, here are 2 voice memos I recorded of different clay-related sounds. The first one is dry bits of clay being dug through with my hand and then being crushed and broken. The second sound is those dry clay bits being poured into a bucket of water and sizzling as they rehydrate. So we're going to do the first one. This episode will conclude the first time we've ever had an ASMR Mike cliffhanger. We'll conclude this little mini-series next episode, but for now, enjoy this clay pottery related ASMR Mike segment. Thank you for listening.